Steve Harvey had been hosting Family Feud for over 12 years, and he believed he had witnessed every possible family dynamic that could unfold on his stage. The joyful reunions, the competitive rivalries, the nervous breakdowns, and the unexpected confessions. But on that crisp October afternoon in 2024, he was about to become an unwilling participant in a moment of truth so devastating that it would stop the entire production and remind everyone watching about the destructive power of secrets and lies in marriage. Before we get into this incredible story that will leave you absolutely stunned, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another moment that shows why honesty and integrity in relationships matter more than anything else. The Richardson family from Atlanta, Georgia stood on stage with an energy that seemed almost too perfect. Marcus Richardson, 43 years old, was a successful executive at a technology firm, known in his community as a devoted family man and active church member. His wife, Jennifer Richardson, was 41, a pediatric nurse who had dedicated her life to caring for children both professionally and personally. Their 3 children stood with them on stage. Melissa was 17 and preparing for college. Brandon was 14 and excelled at basketball, and little Emma was just 9 years old with her mother's warm smile and her father's quick wit. They were competing against the Turner family from Nashville, Tennessee, and the atmosphere in the studio was filled with the usual excitement and anticipation. Jennifer Richardson had been looking forward to this Family Feud appearance for months. When they received the acceptance letter, she had seen it as a sign that their family was blessed. They had been through some difficult times in recent years. Marcus had been traveling extensively for work, sometimes gone for weeks at a time on business trips to the West Coast. There had been moments when Jennifer felt the distance between them growing, times when Marcus seemed distracted or distant even when he was physically present at home. But she had attributed it to work stress and the challenges of maintaining a successful career while raising a family. She had no reason to suspect that her husband was hiding something that would shatter the foundation of their marriage and the image of their perfect family. The game had progressed smoothly through the first 2 rounds. The families were evenly matched, trading points back and forth with good-natured competition and laughter. Steve Harvey had been his usual entertaining self, making jokes about the answers and keeping the energy high in the studio. The Richardson family seemed to embody everything wholesome about American family life. Marcus was charming and quick with his responses, Jennifer was supportive and enthusiastic, and their children were polite and engaged. No one in that studio, not the audience members, not the production crew, and certainly not Jennifer Richardson herself, had any idea that everything was about to change in the most devastating way possible. The question came up during the 3rd round when Marcus was standing at the podium. Steve read from his card with his signature style and charisma. "We asked 100 people to name something you might have to explain to your spouse." It seemed like a harmless question, the kind of lighthearted prompt that typically generated answers about purchases, late nights out, or questionable decisions. The survey board showed several common answers already revealed by previous family members. Forgot anniversary, bought something expensive, came home late, and lost wedding ring were all up there with their respective point values. Marcus was the final person from his family to answer, and they needed just 12 more points to win the round and take control of the board. The studio audience waited in anticipation as Marcus contemplated his response. Steve stood ready with his microphone, expecting another routine answer that would either win the round or give the opposing team a chance to steal. What happened next would become one of the most talked-about moments in game show history, but not for the reasons anyone could have anticipated. Marcus took a breath and said with what seemed like complete confidence, "A child from a previous relationship." The words hung in the air for just a moment before their full implication registered. Steve's eyebrows shot up in his trademark expression of surprise, and he responded with a slight laugh. "A child from a previous relationship." "All right, let's see if it's up there." The board was checked, and surprisingly, the answer was there. It lit up showing 11 points, just 1 point shy of what they needed. Under normal circumstances, this would have meant the opposing team got a chance to steal, and the game would have continued. But something else was happening simultaneously that no one on stage or in the production booth had anticipated. Jennifer Richardson's face had gone completely white. She stood frozen in her position with the family, her mouth slightly open in an expression of pure shock. Her daughter Melissa had grabbed her mother's arm, sensing immediately that something was terribly wrong. The other children looked confused, not fully understanding what had just transpired but recognizing the sudden shift in their mother's demeanor. Steve Harvey, with his decades of experience reading people and situations, noticed Jennifer's reaction immediately. His smile faded as he looked from Marcus to Jennifer and back again, his quick mind processing what might be happening. "Hold on just a second," Steve said, his voice losing all traces of its entertainment quality and taking on a tone of serious concern. He looked directly at Marcus. "Brother, I need to ask you something. When you said a child from a previous relationship, were you speaking hypothetically about what someone might need to explain, or were you speaking from personal experience?" The studio had gone completely silent. The audience sensed that something significant was unfolding, though most did not yet understand the full gravity of the situation. Marcus's face had changed color as well, moving from its normal tone to a deep red as the realization of what he had just revealed began to sink in. He looked at Steve, then at his wife, and in that moment, everyone watching could see the truth written plainly across his features. Jennifer found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper that the microphone struggled to pick up. "Marcus, what is he talking about? What child from a previous relationship?" Her voice grew stronger and louder with each word as the full horror of the situation began to dawn on her. "We've been married for 18 years. You told me you never had any serious relationships before me. What child are you talking about?" Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked like a man watching his entire life collapse in real time, which was exactly what was happening. Steve Harvey made a decision in that moment that would define not just this episode, but his entire approach to hosting the show. He raised his hand to signal the production booth. "Stop everything. Stop the game, stop the cameras, stop the clock. We need to pause right now." The production crew looked confused, but Steve's authority on his own show was absolute. Game clock stopped. The audience murmuring grew louder, and Steve walked over to where the Richardson family stood. He addressed Jennifer directly with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the devastating situation unfolding. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry, but I think we need to have a conversation off stage. This is not something that should happen in front of cameras and an audience." Jennifer was crying now, tears streaming down her face as 18 years of trust and marriage seemed to crumble before her eyes. She shook her head firmly. "No, Mr. Harvey, if he can reveal this secret on national television, then we can deal with it right here where everyone can see the truth. I want to know right now in front of all these people what my husband has been hiding from me." Steve looked at Marcus with an expression that mixed disappointment, anger, and a profound sadness for what was unfolding. "Marcus, I'm going to ask you directly, and I need you to understand that this is not about the game anymore. This is about this woman's life, your children's lives, and the truth. Do you have a child from another relationship that your wife doesn't know about?" The studio was so quiet that the hum of the lighting equipment could be heard clearly. Marcus looked at his wife, at his children who were staring at him with growing confusion and fear, and at the hundreds of eyes in the studio all focused on him. He had a choice in that moment to continue the lie, to claim he had been speaking hypothetically, to try to salvage the situation with more deception. But perhaps the weight of carrying the secret for so long, or the shock of having it exposed so publicly, or simply the impossibility of maintaining the lie in the face of such direct questioning made him choose differently. "Yes," he said quietly, and that single word detonated like a bomb in the Richardson family's life. "I have a daughter. She's 16 years old. Her name is Maya, and she lives in Seattle with her mother." Jennifer let out a sound that was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Her legs seemed to give out, and Melissa and Brandon had to physically support her to keep her standing. Little Emma started crying, not fully understanding what was happening but terrified by her mother's reaction and the terrible tension that had filled the studio. Steve closed his eyes for a long moment, and when he opened them, the pain in his expression was evident to everyone watching. "Marcus, help me understand something," Steve said, his voice heavy with controlled emotion. "You have a 16-year-old daughter. You've been married to this woman for 18 years. That means this child was conceived when you were already married, when you already had children with your wife. Is that correct?" Marcus nodded, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "Yes, sir. It happened during a business trip to Seattle about 17 years ago. It was a conference, and I made a terrible mistake. When the woman told me she was pregnant, I tried to convince her to end it, but she refused. She said she would raise the child herself and never contact me or my family. I sent money every month to support the child, but I never told Jennifer. I never told anyone." The confession poured out of Marcus like poison being drained from a wound. He told them about the secret bank account he had opened to send child support payments, the separate phone he kept to communicate with the child's mother about medical issues and school expenses. The business trips he had extended or fabricated entirely to attend important events in his daughter's life, like her first day of school, her dance recitals, and her 16th birthday party just 2 months ago. With every revelation, Jennifer's face showed a new level of betrayal and pain. This was not just an affair or a mistake from the past. This was a systematic deception that had lasted nearly their entire marriage, a double life that had required constant lies and careful planning to maintain. Steve turned to address Jennifer, and the compassion in his voice was profound. "Ma'am, I cannot even begin to tell you how sorry I am that this is happening, and especially that it's happening here in this way. No one should have to learn something like this in front of cameras and strangers. But I want you to know something important right now. This is not your fault. This is not because you weren't enough or didn't do enough. This is about choices your husband made and continued to make every single day for 16 years. Jennifer looked at Steve through her tears and nodded, though it was clear she was in shock and struggling to process the magnitude of what she had just learned. Steve then turned his attention back to Marcus, and the disappointment in his voice was cutting. "Brother, I have to tell you, in all my years of doing this show and all my years in entertainment and life, I have seen a lot of things. But what you just did, what you've been doing for 16 years, that's something I cannot understand or excuse. You didn't just make a mistake 17 years ago. You made a choice every single day since then to lie to your wife, to deceive the mother of your children, to live a double life. And what makes it even worse is that you stood up here today in front of God and everybody, knowing you had this secret, and you still chose to come on this show with your family." The audience had begun to react now, murmurs of shock and anger rippling through the studio. Some people were openly crying along with Jennifer. Others were shaking their heads in disbelief at what they were witnessing. The Turner family, the opposing team, stood off to the side looking completely uncomfortable and unsure of what to do or where to look. This had gone far beyond a game show competition into territory that no one had been prepared for. Steve made another decision that would become part of his legacy as a host who put people before entertainment. "We're not continuing this game," he announced to everyone in the studio and to the production team. "This family is going through something devastating right now, and they need privacy and support, not cameras and competition. Both families are going to receive the full prize money because none of this is fair to anyone involved. But more importantly, the Richardson family needs to leave this stage right now and deal with this situation away from all these eyes." He turned to the production staff. "Get them to a private room. Get a counselor here if we have one available. Make sure they have whatever support they need." The staff immediately jumped into action, but before they could escort the family off stage, Jennifer spoke up. Her voice was stronger now, fueled by a righteous anger that was beginning to replace the initial shock. "No, Mr. Harvey, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm not leaving yet. I have something I need to say while I'm standing right here next to the man I thought I knew." She turned to face Marcus directly, and the pain and fury in her expression made even the hardened production crew members wince. "For 18 years, I trusted you completely. When you traveled for work, I never questioned it. When you said you needed a separate account for business expenses, I believed you. When you stayed late at the office or took those weekend trips, I supported you because I thought you were working hard for our family. I was home raising our children, working night shifts at the hospital, managing everything so you could pursue your career. And all that time, you had another child, another daughter." Jennifer's voice broke slightly, but she pushed through. "You have a 16-year-old daughter who you've been involved with, who you've supported, who you've visited. That means you chose to have a relationship with her while lying to me and our children about where you were and what you were doing. You went to her birthday party 2 months ago." "Where did I think you were? What lie did you tell me that time?" Marcus tried to speak, but Jennifer held up her hand. Don't you dare try to explain or justify any of this right now. You've spent 16 years lying. I don't need to hear any more lies today." She turned back to Steve. "You're right that I need to leave this stage and deal with this privately, but I want everyone watching to know something. I want every woman who's watching this to understand that you can do everything right. You can be a good wife and mother, you can trust completely, and still be deceived by someone you thought you knew. This isn't about me being naive or not paying attention. This is about him being a practiced liar." Steve nodded with deep respect for her strength in such a devastating moment. "You're absolutely right, and I want everyone watching to hear what you just said because it's important. When someone chooses to deceive you, especially over a long period of time, that's not a reflection of your worth or your judgment. That's a reflection of their character and their choices." He addressed the camera directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we've witnessed here today goes beyond entertainment. This is a family experiencing one of the most painful betrayals possible, and it's happening in the most public way imaginable. I hope that everyone watching will remember that real people with real feelings are at the center of this situation. The Richardson children had been standing in shocked silence through most of this exchange, but now their daughter Melissa spoke up, her young voice shaking with emotion. "Dad, I have a sister. You've had another daughter this whole time and never told us. What about us? Did we not matter enough? Did our family not matter enough?" The anguish in her voice reflected not just her own pain, but the pain of her siblings who were also processing the revelation that their father had an entire secret life they knew nothing about. Marcus finally broke down, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his children. "You all matter. You matter so much. I love you more than anything. I made a terrible mistake and I didn't know how to fix it, so I just kept hiding it. I thought I was protecting you." Melissa's response was immediate and cutting. "You weren't protecting us. You were protecting yourself. And now we have to find out on television that our dad is a liar and that we have a sister we've never met. How is that protection?" Steve put a hand on Melissa's shoulder gently. "Young lady, I know you're hurting right now, and you have every right to be angry, but I'm going to suggest that you and your siblings and your mother take this conversation somewhere private where you can process these feelings without cameras. You deserve that privacy and respect." He looked at the production team again. "Take them to the green room, make sure they have water, tissues, whatever they need, and clear everyone else out so they can have space." As the Richardson family began to be escorted off stage, Jennifer turned back one more time to address her husband. "I want you to know that when we leave here, I'm calling a lawyer. I don't know if our marriage can survive this, and honestly, right now, I don't even want it to. But more than that, I'm going to make sure our children get the therapy they need to deal with what you've done to them and to our family. Because they didn't deserve this, and neither did I." Marcus nodded, his face a mask of misery and regret. "I understand. I'm so sorry, Jennifer. I'm sorry to all of you." But his apologies sounded hollow even to his own ears, inadequate to address the magnitude of the pain he had caused. Steve watched them leave the stage before turning back to the audience and cameras. He stood silent for a long moment, clearly affected by what had just transpired. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of genuine emotion and hard-earned wisdom. "I need to take a moment here to talk about what just happened because this is important. We've all just witnessed a family being torn apart by secrets and lies. This is not entertainment. This is real pain, real betrayal, and real consequences. Marcus Richardson made a choice 17 years ago to have an affair, and that was wrong. But what made it worse, what turned it from a terrible mistake into a sustained betrayal, was the choice he made every single day after that to continue lying to his wife and his children." Steve continued, addressing the camera and audience with an intensity that showed how deeply the situation had affected him. "I want every person watching this to understand something crucial. If you're keeping a secret from your spouse, especially a secret like this, you're not just lying to them. You're stealing their right to make informed decisions about their own life. Jennifer Richardson deserved to know the truth 16 years ago. She deserved the chance to decide whether she wanted to stay in a marriage with someone who had been unfaithful and had a child with another woman. Marcus took that choice away from her by lying. He stole 16 years of her life that were based on a false foundation." The studio audience sat in complete silence, many of them visibly emotional as they processed what they had witnessed. Steve's message was hitting home not just for them, but for the millions who would eventually watch this episode. He went on, his voice growing even more passionate. "And I want to say something to anyone out there who is living with a secret like this. You might think you're protecting your family by keeping it hidden. You might tell yourself that what they don't know won't hurt them. But that's a lie you're telling yourself to avoid facing the consequences of your actions. The truth always comes out eventually. Always. And when it does, the damage is so much worse than it would have been if you had been honest from the beginning." Steve paused, collecting his thoughts before continuing. Marcus Richardson thought he could manage his secret, control it, keep it contained in a separate part of his life. But secrets like that don't stay contained. They leak out in 1,000 small ways. The distance Jennifer felt from her husband, the time he spent away from his family, the money that could have gone to his children's education, instead going to support his secret life. All of that was stealing from his family even before they knew the truth. And now that the truth is out, the damage is catastrophic. His children will never look at him the same way. His wife may never be able to trust again. The foundation of their family has been destroyed. The raw honesty of Steve's words resonated throughout the studio. He was not performing now, not entertaining. He was speaking truth from a place of genuine conviction and concern. "I also want to say something to Jennifer Richardson and to anyone else who has been betrayed in this way. This is not your fault. You did not cause this by being too trusting or not vigilant enough. When you enter into a marriage, you have the right to expect honesty and faithfulness. When your partner violates that trust through deception, that is their failure, not yours. Do not let anyone, including yourself, suggest that you should have known or should have questioned more. The person who was wrong here was the person who chose to lie. Steve's message continued with specific guidance for Jennifer and others in similar situations. Jennifer Richardson stood up here a few minutes ago and said she was calling a lawyer. That might seem harsh to some people, but I want to say loud and clear that she has every right to protect herself and her children. When trust has been violated this completely, when deception has been this sustained and systematic, you cannot just forgive and move on without serious intervention, therapy, accountability, and time. And sometimes, even with all of that, the marriage cannot be saved. And that's okay. Some betrayals are too deep, some violations of trust too complete. Jennifer needs to do what's best for her and her children, and no one else gets to judge that decision. The production team had signaled to Steve that they needed to make a decision about how to proceed with the taping. He acknowledged them with a nod before addressing the audience one final time. We're going to end this taping here today. What started as a fun game show turned into something none of us anticipated, and it wouldn't be right to continue like nothing happened. Turner family will receive their full prize money even though we didn't complete the competition, because they came here in good faith, and none of this is their fault either. And I want to thank all of you in the audience for your compassion and understanding as we dealt with this very difficult situation. As the studio audience began to file out, many of them stopped to speak with production staff about what they had witnessed, asking if there was any way to send support or messages to Jennifer and her children. The compassion and concern from complete strangers spoke to the universal understanding of the pain of betrayal and the sympathy people naturally feel for those who have been wronged. The production crew moved efficiently to close down the set, but the atmosphere was subdued and somber, completely unlike the usual upbeat energy that followed a Family Feud taping. In the green room, the Richardson family was beginning the painful process of confronting their new reality. Jennifer sat with her children around her, all of them crying and trying to comfort each other while simultaneously processing their own individual pain. A counselor who happened to be on staff had been called in and was providing what support she could in the immediate aftermath of such a devastating revelation. Marcus had been separated from his family at Jennifer's request, sitting alone in a different room with the weight of what he had done, and what he had lost pressing down on him with crushing force. When the episode finally aired 6 weeks later, the production team made the difficult decision to show everything that had happened, with the Richardson family's permission. Jennifer had agreed to allow it to be broadcast because she wanted other people to learn from their experience. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The clip went viral within hours, shared across every social media platform with millions of views and countless comments. The overwhelming majority of responses supported Jennifer and condemned Marcus's actions. Relationship counselors and therapists used the clip as a teaching tool about the impact of infidelity and deception. Support groups for people who had experienced betrayal shared it as validation of their pain and anger. But perhaps the most significant impact was on other people living with similar secrets. The episode prompted hundreds of people to come forward and confess hidden affairs, secret children, and other deceptions to their spouses. Some did it because they were inspired by Jennifer's strength and wanted their partners to hear the truth from them rather than discover it accidentally. Others did it because they saw the devastating impact of Marcus's prolonged deception and realized they did not want to inflict that same pain on their families. The confessions led to some marriages ending immediately, others entering intensive counseling, and a few finding a path toward painful but genuine healing. Jennifer Richardson became an unexpected advocate for betrayed spouses. She gave interviews about the importance of honesty in relationships and the particular pain of discovering that your entire marriage was based on lies. She was careful to note that every situation was different and that she could not tell others whether to stay or leave their marriages after infidelity. But she was clear about her own decision. 3 months after the Family Feud taping, she filed for divorce from Marcus. The legal proceedings revealed the full extent of his deception, including the significant amount of money he had diverted from family finances to support his secret daughter, and the elaborate lies he had constructed to hide his double life. The Richardson children struggled in the aftermath of the revelation. Melissa, the oldest, became fiercely protective of her mother and initially refused to have any contact with her father. Brandon, the middle child, withdrew into himself and required therapy to process his feelings of betrayal and confusion. Little Emma was perhaps affected most deeply, because she was too young to fully understand adult complications, but old enough to recognize that her family had been destroyed. Jennifer made sure all three children received professional counseling to help them navigate their complicated feelings about their father, their family, and the shocking discovery of a half-sister they had never known existed. The secret daughter, Maya, also became part of the public conversation when her mother chose to give a single interview about their experience. She explained that Marcus had been involved in Maya's life, but always at a distance, always with the understanding that he had another family who could never know about her. Maya had grown up knowing she had siblings she could never meet, a father who loved her but could not publicly claim her. The interview revealed another layer of pain and complexity to the situation, showing how Marcus's deception had damaged not just one family but two, creating a child who grew up in the shadows of a secret and a wife who had been betrayed by the man she trusted completely. Steve Harvey reflected on the incident in multiple subsequent interviews and speaking engagements. He spoke about the responsibility of having a platform and the unexpected moments when entertainment becomes something much more serious and significant. "I've had a lot of memorable moments hosting Family Feud," he said in one interview. "Funny answers, touching reunions, surprising victories. But the day Marcus Richardson accidentally revealed his secret child on my stage, that's a moment I'll never forget. Not because it was entertaining, but because it was real in a way that reminded all of us why truth and honesty matter so much in our relationships." Steve also addressed the criticism he received from some viewers who felt he should have handled the situation differently or should not have allowed the confrontation to happen on camera. His response was thoughtful and defended his decision to let Jennifer make her own choice about how to handle the revelation. "Some people said I should have stopped it immediately, taken them off stage before anything was said publicly. But here's the thing. Jennifer Richardson is a grown woman who had just discovered a devastating truth about her husband. When she said she wanted to confront him right there in front of everyone, that was her choice to make. Who was I to tell her she had to handle her pain privately for the sake of television optics? She deserved the right to respond in the way that felt right to her in that moment." The incident sparked broader conversations about infidelity, deception, and the particular pain of discovering long-term betrayals. Therapists noted that affairs that result in children create an especially complicated form of betrayal because they produce permanent evidence of the infidelity and ongoing connections that cannot simply be severed. The revelation that Marcus had been actively involved in his secret daughter's life for 16 years, while lying to his wife and legitimate children, added layers of premeditation and sustained deception that made the betrayal feel even more intentional and unforgivable to many observers. 1 year after the incident, Family Feud aired a follow-up segment with Jennifer and her children. They appeared without Marcus, who was not invited to participate. Jennifer spoke about the journey of the past year, the divorce proceedings that had been finalized, the therapy that had helped her and her children begin to heal, and the unexpected silver lining of the situation. "As devastating as it was to learn the truth that way," she said, "I'm grateful I learned it when I did rather than spending another 10 or 20 years living a lie. My children and I are rebuilding our lives based on truth now, and there's something freeing about that even though the truth was painful." Jennifer also revealed that she had met Maya, her husband's secret daughter, several months after the divorce was finalized. The meeting had been complicated and emotional, but Jennifer had wanted Maya to know that none of the situation was her fault and that she deserved to know her half-siblings if she wanted that relationship. The revelation that Jennifer had extended compassion to the innocent child caught in the middle of Marcus's deception touched viewers deeply and showed a level of grace that many found inspiring. The Richardson children had also developed a relationship with Maya, carefully navigating the complex emotions of anger at their father while building a connection with a sister who was as much a victim of the situation as they were. Marcus Richardson largely disappeared from public view after the divorce. He released a single statement apologizing for his actions and acknowledging the pain he had caused, but he gave no interviews and made no public appearances. Those who knew him reported that he had left his job, moved to a different city, and was attempting to rebuild relationships with his children, though progress was slow and painful. His relationship with Maya also became strained as she grappled with the realization that her existence had destroyed another family, and that her father's love for her had always been complicated by shame and secrecy. The story of what happened when a wife discovered her husband's secret child through his answer on Family Feud became more than just a viral moment. It became a case study in the destructive power of secrets, the importance of honesty in relationships, and the strength required to face devastating truths and rebuild your life. It reminded viewers that the people we see on television, even in the context of game shows and entertainment, are real human beings with real feelings and real lives that can be irrevocably changed in a single moment of truth. As this remarkable and heartbreaking story comes to a close, the central lesson remains. Secrets, especially secrets of this magnitude, are like poison in a relationship. They might remain hidden for years, but eventually they contaminate everything they touch. Marcus Richardson thought he could manage his secret, compartmentalize his life, protect his family from the truth. Instead, his deception destroyed the very thing he claimed to be protecting. Jennifer Richardson and her children are rebuilding their lives now, stronger for having faced the truth no matter how painful. If this story has touched you or made you think about the importance of honesty in your own relationships, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories that remind us what really matters in life. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, whether they need encouragement to tell the truth or validation that they deserve better than deception. Because in the end, the truth might hurt, but lies destroy everything they touch.